Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the BLACKBIRD PLC half-year results for the 6 months ending 30th of June 2021 investor presentation. Throughout this presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Please just simply type in your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question it receives during the meeting itself. However, the company will review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. These will be made available to you via your Investor Meet Company dashboard, and we'll send you an email when they're ready for your review. I'd also like to remind you that this presentation is being recorded. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll, and if you would give that your kind attention, we would be most grateful. And I'd now like to hand over to Ian McDonough, CEO from BLACKBIRD. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Mark. Thank you very much. And good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Right, we're going to start the presentation. We're going to start on slide 3. I'm imagining that a number of you have seen us present before, and so know a little bit about what's on this slide. But just to recap, we're an AIM-listed business. We're a developer and seller of BLACKBIRD software. BLACKBIRD software is a video editing software that works remotely, works in the cloud. It is patented, and it works on any piece of hardware, on any bandwidth connection, and produces professional video. We'll come back a bit more to what it does later on. We're on AIM, but also on, as of recently, the OTCQX market in the USA, where investors in 37 states can now buy BLACKBIRD through that exchange. It's very, very new. It's only happened in the last few weeks, really, and we will be promoting that as we move forward into the next few months, doing a few new conferences between now and Christmas to promote our presence there. We have a very healthy market cap. This was taken on the 8th of September, so very happy with that. So just a bit more about the company. And the first bullet point here under BLACKBIRD is IP company. This is really a key theme for this presentation. For 4 years since I joined the company, I have been talking about how our IP, and we have 16 patents in the company, if you count the ones that are pending, 6 pending. We've been talking about how the IP has value outside of our core video editing platform. This presentation is the first time that we're able to show a data point for that. It's the first evidence that we can show that we've licensed the software outside of licensing our core product. And last week we announced a 5-year deal with a global broadcasting company who will take our libraries and codec and build their own video editing software on the top of that. It's a really significant deal for us financially. It's the largest deal we've done by a factor of 2. It's also a very significant deal for us strategically. And I would expect you as investors to see more of those kind of deals in the future. The second bullet and the third bullet are also really key here, and another key theme for the presentation. We're cloud and we are SaaS, cloud native and SaaS. Many of you may have seen in the last few weeks that there has been some movement in our sector, in our industry, and actually I would say it's rather hot. There has been a big acquisition made by Adobe, for instance, of a company called Frame.io. If you read the analysis around that acquisition, you'll see that they valued the company on a number of things. So the value was $1.25 billion for a company that was turning over around $20 million. So I just say a huge multiple. But it was on its install base, and also on the fact it was cloud native and SaaS. And it's able to help Adobe move from a CapEx model and an on-premise model, hardware model, into a SaaS and cloud model. By coincidence or by design, that's also what we're doing for the company that we did a deal with last week. We will be helping them over time to move from a CapEx on-premise model to a cloud SaaS model. So a bit like a golden goose that can lay golden eggs, we can create value in other companies around the industry and move them from on-premise CapEx to cloud SaaS. Additionally, we've put out a lot of information this year about us being environmentally friendly, and I'll touch on that a bit later. And in this hybrid way of working, as you can see, we are actually together, Steve and I, but we're not able to meet many of our investors in person, so we're kind of still hybrid. We are offering as a platform freedom for the end user to work from anywhere, wherever that person chooses to. And for the companies that we sell into, we are making sure that their workflows are resilient. The fact that you can do it from any laptop on any bandwidth connection really means that the companies we sell to have a very resilient workflow. So the board slide, for those that have seen this presentation before, is identical to the last time we showed it. But I would just let everyone know that we have all become shareholders now. John Honeycutt was announced as a shareholder yesterday morning for the first time since we've now launched on the OTCQX. In addition, Andrew Bentley, who is the chairman, also acquired new stock, and so did I on behalf of my family. So yeah, all members of the board are very happy holders of the stock. So the highlights as we go into the presentation. So first of all, we've done our first tech licensing deal. We have recorded record revenues for the first half of 21% up. I would say that with the second half is going to be considerably better, because much of the activity that happened in the first half is yet to be put into the numbers, including the tech licensing deal, including the deal with Viacom CBS, Univision, and others. So that's good to look forward to. Thirdly, we've launched 2 strategic papers this year so far. One was around the environment and how sustainable Blackbird is as a technology, and the second around how cost effective it is to own and run Blackbird if you're a CTO or a business. We did that on TCO, total cost of ownership. We've also been adopted for the first time by our first major US studio in Viacom CBS. So to touch on the IP company that we have. So we have these 16 patents, and we've just done our first licensing deal. I say we are actually now licensing this components of our software, modules of our software, so that other companies can build, in this case, a video editing platform on top. We believe it doesn't have to be a video editing platform. It could in fact be any video platform where playback is going to be required, because what we are actually patenting in our software is how pixels are seen on screen. So it really opens up the market, not just a video editing professionally, consumer, but well beyond that into video playback as well. So the other thing is that we are able to, because we're cloud and SaaS, we're able to aid companies in their migration from the old world into the new world of cloud and SaaS. Okay, so we'll touch on how that deal is structured a little bit later, because I'm sure quite a few of you are interested. So routes to market, we always used to show this slide as a strategy slide in a kind of linear form. So it went from direct sales to OEM to public cloud. What has become apparent and clear now is that direct sales are always going to be important to us, and they're very, very good for the company profile. You can see just in the last few months with the US deals that we've brought on board, it's really good for raising our profile. The OEM deals are going to be also very important. IP licensing is a brand new circle that we have on here, and I think that there's going to be some really nice deals that we can do there in the space. The company that we've just done this deal with is a very good company of excellent repute, but there are other ones, and there are larger ones too. So I think there's more to come in that space. And public cloud is a project that we will be launching now early 2022. That will help us to develop the platform and the business models in 2 ways. One is the fact that for enterprise, legal teams in the big blue chip media companies will be able to look to those Microsoft, Google, and Amazon clouds and get comfort from their reliability and cybersecurity. It's not a problem that Blackbird's ever had, but legal teams are often put at rest by the fact that Amazon, Google, and Microsoft have been through lots and lots of examinations to make sure that they're the most secure and reliable. Secondly, public cloud will allow us over time to address the long tail of our industry, to have a self-service model in a marketplace. So that's the 2 ways that that public cloud will help our development as a business. We showed this slide last time, so I'll cover it very briefly. This really just shows how our cost of ownership, total cost of ownership, and our share of wallet interplays. So on the left-hand side, you've got a bar chart which shows how much it would cost a CTO comparatively to run a traditional non-linear editor, usually the names beginning with A, we know who they are, versus BLACKBIRD. And it's as you can see there, the green arrow shows that it's 35% cheaper to run BLACKBIRD versus it is to run a traditional platform. The chart on the right, though, shows how much of that share of wallet BLACKBIRD will win. The reason is because BLACKBIRD is selling a basket of services and not just the pure licensing. So that includes infrastructure and bandwidth, etc. So just a key visual there to see that we're actually, more cost effective for the CTO, but well, more lucrative for the investor. Now this slide takes a little bit of explaining, so please bear with me. So we talked through this one last time, and we've added to this to make it slightly more complicated. So I'm going to take it very slowly. We'll work outwards from the small brown dot. The small brown dot is the professional video editing software market, and that is the market that is applicable for BLACKBIRD's core product. That is around 600 million, and that is what we call our core SAM, if you like. The yellow market, the yellow circle, is the 10x of that. So as we explained on the previous slide, we can win 10x business in the market because we're not just selling the video software, we're also selling a basket of services around that. Now the orange circle, that is the total video editing software market. That includes high-end video editing, so the likes of the major studios making feature films, but also consumer video editing. What the new technology licensing deal will allow us to do is to now call that also our TAM. So we can now approach companies that are in that space to sell them or license to them our software, because we're not actually talking about an end product here. We're talking about a component of our product that can go inside of someone else's end product. So we are getting a percentage of revenue share from the deal that we've just done. So we would feel confident in saying that we can extrapolate that forward and say we could get a percentage of revenue share from that orange circle. The dotted line around the edge, now that is undetermined in terms of size right now. It's just, please bear in mind that this deal is very fresh, it's very new, it's only been announced last week, and we haven't yet ascertained the size of the potential market for the core video technology product, the powered by BLACKBIRD product. But we think it's very large. So watch this space. We'll try and get some kind of estimate of that by the time we come next. But that means that it's not just video editing, excuse me, video editing, but it's also video playback. Right. Another thing that we're very proud of in this period is the fact that we have become well known for being a leader in the industry on carbon reduction. We started this process in January to ascertain our own carbon footprint and to compare ourselves to other people in the marketplace. We worked with a third-party company called Green Element, and when they came back with their analysis, it turns out that BLACKBIRD is 91% more efficient, or uses 91% less carbon than a traditional NLE. This has gone down very well in the industry. In fact, it really woke the industry up. For a small company with a small number of people working for us, it's extraordinary, I think, that we've taken such a leadership role in this part of the industry. We are really now seen as someone that's trying to make a big change. I've been on Sky News. I've been on a number of panels, probably one every month or so, since we launched this. We've also been awarded the London Stock Exchange Green Economy Mark for the work that we've done in this area. And there are only 100 companies on the entire exchange that have that Green Economy Mark. We think this is going to get more important and bigger as time goes on. At least we will be making sure it does. We don't know whether we can stop the world heating up, but I think that everyone over the next 5 to 10 years will be giving it a very good go. Governments and large companies, etc. And we want to be at the very forefront of that. So we think this is a very important initiative. So some of our selected deals from this year. I'm not going to go through every one, but I'll talk to a bit of highlights. Town News For people that have seen this before, we're very familiar. Town News has expanded twice again this year. When I say that Town News themselves have won 2 new deals, totaling around, I think it's around 26 or 27 new stations this year. So really good step forward. ODK is an on-demand platform. They're headquartered in Seoul, South Korea. They have a workforce in Vietnam. They have content that they're taking out of Mexico, and they have their audience in the USA. So using Blackbird as a collaboration tool and hub, they're able to utilize the different initiatives from all those different countries and have a successful workflow publishing out to the US audience. So really proud of how we're working as a hub there and as a collaboration tool. LiveView is a US-Israeli company and Israeli company, and we are working with them to produce the German elections with the main German broadcasters led by RTL. Univision is the North American largest Spanish language service, and we're working with them on sports, news, and entertainment. I will probably not go over every one of these logos, but EVS, you saw last time, we're producing some very prestigious games with them. One just happened in the summer. You might have seen. Cheddar News is a post cable network for millennials, so very happy to be on that. And then CBS Sports is obviously something we're very proud of, one of our most recent deals, where we're working with them on their soccer production. A lot of this has been made possible by the fact that we have really worked very hard on our API strategy over the last period. We now have multifunctional APIs right the way across the platform. When I first started with the company, the technology could pretty much be viewed as a black box with a couple of things you could take in and a couple of things you can take out. It's really opened up since then. It's still a far cry from saying it's completely interoperable, but interoperable is what we want to be as fully as we can. We've made great strides there thanks to Stephen and his team's work. The other major initiative that we're working on, of course, is public cloud, which we talked about a couple of roadshows, and that is an ongoing project that should see the first launch early next year. Can I pass over to Steve now to talk about the financials?
Thank you, Ian. So H1 revenues were up 21% year on year. As Ian mentioned earlier, we expect a much stronger H2, which I'll come on to a little bit more later. So our core market is North America because they're the trendsetters and leaders in terms of cloud migration. In that market, we were up 33% year on year on a like-for-like basis. So really strong results in that market. The figures are obviously all quoted in sterling. The pound strength against the US dollar was the key reason, or whatever, that we were down by about 50k or so in terms of revenues compared to our comparative figure last year. We have a SaaS model, and so one of the key KPIs that we will be looking at going forwards is the monthly recurring revenue. That's grown by over 220% over the last 2 years, and we were at a figure over 150,000 per month in June 2021. Similarly, we would have seen a bit more growth in terms of that KPI versus December 2020 if the pound hadn't got as strong against the US dollar. All of these figures exclude one-off events. So as Ian mentioned earlier, we've got the prestigious games that we're doing with EVS. So the impact of those revenues will be seen in H2 and in 2022. Similarly, we have an OEM relationship with the broadcast post sector, and we get overages every month from volumes of content going into Blackbird and numbers of new users. And when we deploy, we get installation fees, training fees, and sometimes a little bit of dev fees as well. All of those are overages above the monthly recurring revenues. So excluding the one-off events, those numbers can be between 10 to 20k or so a month. So I wanted to give you a little bit more color around our new licensing deal. So it's a €2 million deal, which is a minimum expected revenue that we'll see from the deal. It's split into 2 components. Firstly, a development fee of €700,000. We're expecting €160,000 of that to fall into this calendar year, and the remainder €540,000 to fall into 2022. Secondly, once the product is launched, we will take a share of the product license fees. All of this is underpinned by minimum guarantees. The deal is with a very reputable company, and we expect to see overages, above these minimum guarantee levels. So our contracted but unrecognised revenue, which is an indication of our future order book, really positive news here. That after we announced the licensing deal, that had virtually doubled to 3.8 million. The other really interesting fact is that we had secured 1.55 million revenue for 2022, almost double the level of the comparative figure at this time last year. So we're going to be starting 2022 off probably with higher revenues than we had in 2020. Similarly, for 2021, after we've done the licensing deal, we'll have 1.9 million of revenue secured for this year, and I'm confident that we'll be over the £2 million mark for this year. So in half one, our cash burn was up slightly versus the prior year. Again, I'm confident that in H2 this year, that will come down and that we will see, cash burn less than we had in 2020. I reiterate that, we have a very strong balance sheet. We are debt free, and we had over 5.7 million of cash and short-term investments at 30th of June. We're very confident with our current strategy that we will hit break even within these resources.
Thanks, Steve. So just last couple of slides now for the presentation. A couple of quotes here from key OEM partners of ours. First of all, EVS, who, as we mentioned, we're doing some very prestigious events with. They have said that we are future-proofed, cloud native, and can meet the demands of the world's most prestigious sporting events. Town News, who are the most successful OEM partner that we have and have grown quite considerably this year, have said that we give their broadcast customers huge competitive advantage. So really fantastic to get those endorsements from really key people. So in conclusion, as a product, we are carbon efficient, we are cost efficient, we are time efficient, we are very, very flexible, and we can allow our customers to work from anywhere. So that is much in demand at the moment. And US market growth has been very strong, especially in this period. We've also now got our first data point around the IP value outside of our core product. And that has allowed us to effectively double our order book. So we're very proud of how it's gone so far this year. The year is still young, but I'm now open to answer any questions, because I can see quite a few have come in.
Ian, Stephen, thank you very much indeed for updating investors this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of the screen. But just giving the company a few moments to review those questions submitted already, I'd like to remind you that a recording of these presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your Investor Meet company dashboard. I'd also like to remind you that your feedback is important to the company, and immediately after this presentation has ended, you'll be redirected for the opportunity to provide feedback in order that the company can better understand your views and expectations. Stephen and Ian, a number of questions were submitted ahead of today's event by investors, and I thought perhaps before we look at the live questions, we could address these. First one reads as follows. It's from Derek. Derek asks, in the 12 months has there been any communications with Apple, Adobe or Amazon? And if so, can you elaborate on any communication?
So Derek, very difficult for me to elaborate on that, but we talk to big companies all the time, not just those companies, but it's very difficult for me to go into too much detail about that, other than to say I think we are well regarded in the industry, and those companies are of interest to us, obviously, but I don't want to elaborate too much there. I think it would be a little bit indiscreet at this stage.
Thank you. Next question comes from Nathan, who has got 7 questions rolled into one. So I'm going to break these out, but really they relate to the differing models that you have now the OEM deal has been announced. He asks, what exactly will the OEM be selling? And then perhaps I'll go on to the next points as we go along. Great.
Yeah, no, good question. So the OEM will be selling an advanced video editing browser-based platform as part of a production suite. And they will be using their own UI and their own integrations into their own production suite. And so it is that we would get some kind of revenue, or we'll get the revenue share on sales from the sales of that editing suite, rather than the entire production suite.
Okay,
yeah.
That answers the next question, I think, to part, which is, what is the basis of remuneration to the firm Blackbird and to the OEM?
Yeah, I think Steve covered that off in his presentation. It's a dev fee plus a revenue share, effectively underpinned by a minimum guarantee.
He follows up with, is the OEM running similar software from competitors? Is there an element of exclusivity?
No exclusivity, and no, they're not.
And what level of integration is required?
So I think this actually answers a question that someone else has written on the live questions. We would imagine launching sometime mid next year, I think. And what levels of integration? Well, that much integration. So yeah, I think we'll be working with them on that over that period.
And two final parts to Nathan's question. Is the OEM deal over 5 years at 400,000 per year discounted as it's the first of its kind and allows new entry into the market?
Well, I think the deal took a little longer to complete because it's the first one, but it's fairly priced. And
his final question, are you any nearer to projecting profitability and sharing those estimates?
Well, as Steve said, we've answered that as much as we can, in the sense that we will not be raising more money within now and turning a profit. So yes, we've got closer.
Yeah, we're getting closer. I mean, this was our biggest deal, wasn't it? As Ian reiterated, double the value of any other deal or whatever. So our revenues are still quite lumpy. One deal could be transformational for us.
I think in terms of the growth rates, you can see, just as Steve said, next year we've got already more in the bag for 2022 than we closed in 2020. We've got double the amount in the bag for 2022 than we had this time last year for 2021. So the growth rates are really good.
That's great. Thank you very much. Turning to the next pre-submitted question, can you expand a little on the potential for expansion into new markets outside of broadcast? What markets are you referring to?
Yeah, I mean, at this stage, as I said, we haven't ascertained the size of these markets, but it's really about putting pixels on screens for us. And we've got a codec and surrounding libraries around that can power an editing platform, but they can just as easily just power playback. So if people want something that is carbon efficient, cost efficient, speed efficient, bandwidth efficient, etc., all the things that Blackbird can give them, then that opens up a market for us. So I think at this stage we have yet to do that work, but we will try and get something next time to explain the scale.
Okay, turning to the next question. Does the board think that the substantial fall in the selling price is due to the failure to properly manage market expectations? And if not, why not? And really, what actions do you propose to remedy this?
Well, I think, we try and put as much information out as we can. And the market, we're very, we are keen that investors know as much as they can about what we're doing at Blackbird. And so when we have the opportunity to put information out, we put it out. We don't think we put irrelevant information out or incorrect information out, certainly. So, the market decides. It was a very short blip in the end, I think, that the person's referring to. So, it recovered pretty much to where it was on Friday.
Thank you very much, Ian. Do you expect post-production revenues to recover? And if so, is there loss of income from half one from the lack of post-production that you can quantify?
Do you want to quantify?
Yeah, as I mentioned, yes, we've started to see recovery in that area. It's probably between 20 to 50k or so per year. It is variable because obviously it depends on the volumes which go through these post-production houses, but that will give you some idea of the scale.
That's perfect. Is the Veritone tie-up still active?
Yeah, there was a question about EditShare as well. I think they're both. I'll take both together and say yes, they're both still active. We talk to lots of customers, lots of companies. I would call those two guys partners rather than customers. But yeah, we talk to lots of companies, and those conversations are still ongoing.
Thank you. And then finally, we've just got two more questions. You said previously that you had hoped Tata would sign a similar number of customers to Town News, at the time being 50. Does this still hold? Yeah,
I think we have a great relationship with Tata. Tata are a little bit more reticent to publicize our deals we have with them, but we have had new deals in the period. And yeah, it's a good relationship that is growing.
Great. And then the final question that we receive from investors is, given the insufficient H1 income, do you consider that the level of directors' pay, options and payments under the LTIP are justified and commensurate to current performance?
Well, I'm glad you asked that question. So when I saw this, I was wondering, what level of payment we should be paying them. They're all paid below market rate, including ourselves, and we're all good executives, I believe. We are driving value for shareholders, certainly, and good growth. The LTIPs and the options would be worth nothing if we weren't driving the share price up and creating value there. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm meant to do. I certainly wouldn't want to get rid of the people that we've got and bring inferior people in on lower pay. That wouldn't seem right. So I think we're in good shape with the very strong team that we have.
That's great. Well, Ian, that deals with all the pre-submitted questions. So firstly, thank you to those investors that took time to submit those questions, and to you guys for being so transparent in your approach to them. Maybe I could ask you if you'd be so kind as to open up the Q&A tab on the right-hand side of your screen. You'll see there's a number of questions, and obviously with the limitations of time, perhaps you can pick up those where you feel it's most appropriate. If you could read out the question, and then I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, great. It's a question from Nigel C. Will your transformational OEM agreement preclude BLACKBIRD from being taken over by someone else? I.e., have they imposed any conditions on BLACKBIRD's future deals? Quick answer, no. There's nothing to stop that, and there's nothing in terms of exclusivity in the deal at all. Okay, question from William. Do you want to answer that one, Steve?
Yeah, the Frame.io valuation comparison is interesting. Is the $20 million revenue from Frame.io a recent figure or from back in 2019 when they raised funds? Yeah, the answer to that is the most recent figure that we've seen. But yeah, it just shows the value of cloud native solutions. We actually believe that we have much more valuable IP than Frame.io.
How does Frame.io compare to BLACKBIRD or to other competitors? Well, what we understand, Nathan, is that Frame.io does have a big install base, but we also believe that BLACKBIRD has a greater amount of IP than they do. Yeah, it's not exactly the same company, but it's a good marker in the sand. We're not trying to say that it's exactly the same company, but it's a company of interest in our space, and it's certainly interesting to look at. Question from Ian D. Have you looked at working with YouTube, like the Theta blockchain, who offer end-to-end infrastructure for decentralized video streaming and delivery that provide both technical and economic solutions? With your lower bandwidth, the tech could be a huge market. Thank you. Stephen, do you want to pick that one up?
Yes, so we haven't looked at them specifically, but we have two inputs into development. One is like incremental improvements onto our existing type of clients, and another is sort of much more strategic type things. And so we have definitely been thinking about blockchain and how we can use blockchain. And as you may have seen a couple of years ago, we started work on a player, which is actually used every day by our existing clients, as it happens. And people at A&E include it in their own products now. And obviously with our tech license, that is now available to be used by our clients. So that particular, I mean, there are hundreds of really interesting companies, and we are, from a technology point of view, making ourselves available in that space.
Thanks, Stephen. Question from Colin W. Can you say something about the upside potential of your licensing deal, and when do you think it'll go to market? Will the licensing deal result in a B2B product or a B2C product, or both? I'll answer that actually as I go, because Colin, I'm going to get lost here. So upside potential, we think considerable, given the reputation of the company and the fact they're a very professional operation with a good install base. We're confident of upside. I think it's difficult to put a number on that, and it's probably not the right thing to do on this call. But yeah, we think it's a considerable upside. When do you expect to go to market? Well, we've indicated this is months, not years. So sometime in 2022, probably around the middle of the year. Would the licensing deal result in B2B? Yes, B2B, not B2C. On the licensing deal, what is the benefit to the licensor of building their own editor with the BLACKBIRD Inside brand or powered by Blackbird, I should say, Colin, not Blackbird Inside, and that's going to be co-branded, rather than using using a Blackbird editor. Well, we had discussions with the guys, and in the end, similar to how Acorn sold computers into schools in the 80s, and they realized they had an amazing chip design and licensed by Apple and became ARM. Sometimes companies want to do their own UI. Sometimes companies want to build something that's specific to what they produce and is close to their brand. And sometimes it's easier to do that rather than to redesign an existing product. I think it's as simple as that. It's certainly good from our perspective, because it means we can modularize our software and power another company's end product, which is developing an end product is not the easiest thing in the world. So I think it's good from a Blackbird perspective that we can take that role. It's what we're good at.
So answer the next one. Yeah, will you be able to declare who the global broadcast company is at some point in the future? The answer to that is yes. When the product launches and everything, we'll be named. We'll be going out there with marketing, and as Ian mentioned, it would be under the brand powered by Blackbird as well.
Yeah. Okay. So from Nathan, do you believe the sales team and overall infrastructure are sufficient in size and expertise, or do you believe it requires further strengthening as the addressable market grows? I think that the fact that we have a piece of software that can be replicated millions, if not billions of times at very low cost, especially when you look at these licensing deals, I would say that the size of the company is about right. We have added a couple of people this year in R&D and in operations, and actually two in sales. So we're growing a little bit on the base, but not mushrooming in terms of cost. I think we're very nicely geared in that respect. We can actually sell to really big customers, especially on the tech licensing side with few staff. Do you want to take the second question?
Yeah. So the second one, do you see any need for larger than usual capex R&D investments? Not at this stage. We're not precluding it. Obviously, it depends. As Ian mentioned earlier, our licensing strategy going out, could go beyond the editing space. So we never say never, but no, not at this stage.
Good. Two questions on Tata, but I think I've updated on Tata. So the relationship's in good shape. There are a number of deals in play and on board already. And unfortunately, I can't tell you who they are, but that's not my decision. Unfortunately, we need to respect confidentiality. A question from Mark R. Given some of the impressive client wins, for example, CBS, Univision, and BT, the growth in contracted but unrecognized revenues appears relatively modest in absolute terms, if not in percentage terms. How would you explain the disconnect between the names being signed and the financial impact? For example, is there a case of the way the deals are structured, either do not lend themselves to the recognition of income up front, or is it the case that financial impact is actually considered to be relatively modest in absolute terms? Well, I think, do you want to?
Yeah. Well, the first thing to say on that is, the likes of, the deals with CBS and Univision were post-period, so they're not in the numbers at all. Secondly is really that, we have a very good track record of land and expand, as you've seen, or whatever. So yes, we would expect those to expand over time.
Yeah. Where possible, we try to sign multi-year contracts. That's not always possible. And so some of the deals are annual. But over time, we would expect them to be renewed. Quite a few of the deals that aren't in the unrecognized order book have been going for years, and they're rock solid. Things like the US State Department, we can't put that at the 5-year deal in because it has to get approval by budget every year, but we don't expect that ever to fall out. So there's a few things there that just don't lend themselves, as you say, Mark, to being put in that order book.
Yeah, the other thing to reiterate is, our existing customers just really happy to work with us and everything. The likes of A&E did a webinar with us earlier this year, and they put Blackbird right at the heart of their product, right at the heart of the company. So loads of different departments are using us, and as you've seen, we've expanded revenues, doubled the revenue since the start of the deal a few years ago.
Retention is very high. Churn is very low, very, very low. Stephen, do you want to pick up on the Blackbird 10 question?
Yes, I would like to actually. So there are two things really you can think about Blackbird 10. The first is to incorporate into products that we then sell, and that's in the hands of the product team at the moment. They're looking at various markets and various options for that. And the second is to enhance our tech licensing, because Blackbird 10 will just fit seamlessly into our tech licensing, which will separately broaden our audience, thanks to the extra resolution, for example. So that will then be applicable to new markets and new applications. So I think it will do two things: enhance our existing products and minus extra revenue, but also help to open up these new markets which the tech licensees will adopt.
Great, thank you, Steve. Do you want to also answer the public cloud question? Again, it's quite a technical.
Yes, so let's have a quick look. How's the public cloud progressing? And is there any kind of certification approval stamp from AWS when complete? So I'll answer the second bit first. We don't need any approval stamp from AWS, but they know what we're doing and they're very helpful. And it is progressing. We've just signed this tech licensing deal, so that is just taking priority right now, but we have quite a few people in our development team, and so the public cloud is progressing at the same time. So it's progressing and it will come out, it'll drop out at the end.
Great, thank you, Stephen. Question from Luca: is a NASDAQ listing considered? No. I think we'll answer that one very quickly.
Well, never say never, yeah. I'd say, Ian, but yeah, as we mentioned, we've just launched on OTCQX, so we'll be looking to promote our story over the coming months to our US investor base and grow our presence over that.
We've got an excellent opportunity to talk about the Blackbird story on a really big stage now with OTCQX. So I think 2022 would be not a NASDAQ listing, I would say, but as Stephen said, never say never. From Paul C: why did the licensing deal include the development of a new editor and not just the adoption of your own editor? Is that a negative comment upon our own editor? I don't believe so. I think that our own editor is something that we have designed for our customers, and the company in question designs products for their customers too. I think it's a real testament to our strength that they would like our technology to sit at the heart of the editor and be integrated seamlessly into their production suite. So
yeah. I might just mention something. Ian mentioned the ARM analogy, and ARM made computers, but when they started licensing ARM technology, I mean, they moved into mobile phones, but even things like anti-lock braking equipment for cars, anti-lock braking CPUs. So the areas, once you start doing tech licensing, are way beyond your actual product, although in our case, they will all involve video, but it could involve anything. I mean, it could go right into AI, for example, where they're processing video, the player Ian's mentioned. So there's a much bigger range. And as a tech licensee, they have that opportunity to extend their use of the product beyond our own use.
So Paul B has asked a question: will the OEM indicate that the products are powered by Blackbird, and if why is the partner? So the partner is not disclosed because we are in confidentiality, and also we're launching a product with them where Blackbird is a partner, and we want them to have as good a successful launch as possible without competitors knowing too much about it. And secondly, yes, it will be powered by Blackbird, and you will know more about it at launch. Okay,
yeah, thank you for the clear presentation, gents. In your opinion, to what extent do you think you have room for growth in the share price in the medium to long term? Taking cash out of the market cap, the share is trading at 50 to 60 times current ARR, which is right at the top of the typical range, even in the US. I appreciate the Adobe acquisition has created buoyancy in the space. Is ARR the right valuation metric for you? Well, we're on the start of our journey. As we've just mentioned, we've just done our largest deal by a factor of 2. There are other deals we can do in that same space, probably with 10 or so other companies. There's a couple of behemoths in the industry as well, where, if we were to do a deal with those, then, it would be, much larger itself. And then, as Ian mentioned, outside of the video editing space, we also have an opportunity. Now we're in the tech licensing business as well to look at other areas. And we think, that opens up a massive opportunity for our technology and a huge, potential TAM.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Steve. Richard, any news of future deals without giving names? I'm afraid not, Richard. That would be the wrong way to approach this, I think. When will the 10 Blackbird 10 be released? Well, we will get to it when we're in the right time. I think sometime probably next year, but I think it's as you can see from Stephen's to-do list, it's quite long. So we'll let him get this deal out of the way first of all, because this is really transformative for us. Colin, is the rate of Tata's client uptake meeting your expectations? If not, could you please provide some commentary? Well, I'd say that I'd like it to go faster, but then I'd like everything to go faster, Colin. So there's no real commentary to add there, except that we are continuing to bring new OEMs on board. So I would point to LiveView being there, a new OEM this year. We have quite a few other discussions in play. So I think it's Town News is still absolutely the golden child, and if we can have everyone bringing customers in as thick and fast as Town News, then that'd be fantastic. But in the meantime, I'll just bring as many OEMs in as I can and make them all as successful as I can.
Yeah, the next question I think we've answered, which was about why the licensee doesn't want to just license our existing editor. The one after that is from Paul H. The question is, I'm interested in the OTCQX listing. What prompted that, and what are your hopes for how it will benefit the company? Any significant additional burden for you guys? Well, what prompted it was that we want our story and to be known to the whole of the North American market. We think we've got a great and fantastic global story to tell. A lot of our over 70% of our revenues last year came from North America. A lot of the names that we're bringing on board are household names over there, not so much so over here. But the US community are really, sort of active in terms of, investing in tech stocks as well. So we think this will help grow the liquidity of the company, which will benefit all shareholders as well.
There's a couple of questions that mention actual customers, and I probably would like to stay away from those because it could get actual prospects, I would say, because I think it could be a little bit indiscreet. So, but there's saying, would you, for a particular customer, would Blackbird improve their service? Well, I would think yes. So that's why I would want to talk to the customers, but I don't want to kind of go into depth on individual potential customers. Also, recall from last Q call that the pricing was being revised and increased. Does the quote 35% saving reflect such pricing revision? The pricing is quite stable, and I would say that we're in a competitive market where we are the challenger brand. I think we also have to be keen on pricing, because if efficiency is our distilled down our core value, then I think we also have to be price efficient. So I think it's not just about whether we can raise the prices. We want to get adoption, and we also want to show that we're efficient in all ways. So cost efficiency is one of those ways. Colin, I appreciate you can't mention the names of the Tata clients, but can you say how many have signed up, and also indicate when the new anonymized deals are signed? It's a little tricky, Colin. I would say that we have a number in play, a number on our books right now. They are, they're great customers, and I do wish I could tell you the names of them, but unfortunately, we're not able to. But the relationship is in good shape, and I think the investors should take away that the relationship is it's a great relationship, and we're looking to grow that even more. When it gets to the stage where we can do individual trading updates, then I think we'll look at that. But at this stage, it's a good place.
Yeah.
Stephen, Ian, and Steve, I might just jump in, just as you've actually taken on every single question that's come through. And of course, if any more do come through, feel free to grab them, or indeed we'll make these available to you after the meeting. I know investor feedback is particularly important, and we'll shortly redirect investors to provide you with their thoughts and expectations. But in the meantime, if I may just hand back to you and either address any outstanding questions and then ask you to wrap up, that would be great.
Excellent, thanks. I've just seen a couple of extra questions. Will we be expanding the size of the R&D team? Well, I think not dramatically, but we'll always look to add strength when we can. Dan?
I'll just mention one advantage of licensing, and also the APIs that were mentioned in the presentation, is that we do much less of the work in the final product. from the development point of view because we had standard interfaces. So I think we'll get a lot more bang for our buck with the team we have.
I see someone has picked on my use of the word or the phrase global domination. Thank you, Amrit. When will you achieve global domination? Well, we will get global recognition through this one deal in our sector. So we'll be powered by BLACKBIRD in one fell swoop around the world. So I think that's a good place to end. Thank you very much, everybody. I do hope that we pleased you with the progress that we've made so far this year. As I said, the year is still young, and expect more from us in the coming months.
Ian, thank you very much indeed, and both to Steve and Stephen for updating investors this afternoon. Can I please ask investors not to close this session, as we'll now automatically redirect you for the opportunity to provide your feedback in order that the management team may better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, but I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of BLACKBIRD PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. That now concludes today's session, and good afternoon to you all.